April 6, 2026, 4 astronauts rounded the far side of the Moon, the first humans there in 53 years. For 40 minutes, every radio link to Earth went dead. In the hours surrounding that silence, they watched asteroid impacts explode across the lunar surface in real time, spotted a mysterious greenish shimmer inside an ancient crater, and witnessed a total solar eclipse from 250,000 miles away. What the Artemis II crew saw through the windows of Orion was never supposed to be this extraordinary. April 1st, 2026. At Kennedy Space Center, the countdown clock ticked toward evening as the most powerful rocket NASA has ever built, Space Launch System Block 1, stood ready on Pad 39B. At 6:35 p.m. Eastern, its engines thundered to life, sending a new generation of explorers on a journey no one had attempted in over half a century. The Artemis II mission was underway, carrying 4 astronauts farther from Earth than any human since Apollo 17. Inside the Orion capsule, call sign Integrity, 4 names joined the long line of those who have risked everything for discovery. Commander Reed Wiseman, a seasoned Navy pilot and engineer, took the center seat. His job was to lead the mission, make the hard calls, and keep the crew safe as they crossed the deep space gulf. To his right, Victor Glover, pilot, a test pilot, and a veteran of the International Space Station, was responsible for guiding Orion through every burn and maneuver, especially the critical translunar injection that would sling them toward the Moon. Christina Koch, mission specialist, scientist, and record holder for the longest single spaceflight by a woman, managed experiments and health checks, and prepared for the hours when the Moon's far side would fill Orion's windows. Rounding out the crew, Jeremy Hansen, representing the Canadian Space Agency, brought both technical skill and a sense of international partnership. Hansen's focus was running the ultraviolet spectrograph, documenting crew health and offering a steady voice as the team prepared to face the unknown. This was more than a test flight. Artemis II was a 10-day trial by vacuum, designed to prove that humans and their machines could survive the rigors of deep space again. The plan was to launch from Florida, orbit Earth, then fire Orion's upper stage for a free return trajectory. A looping path that would swing the crew around the Moon without the need for a landing or lunar orbit insertion. This trajectory, perfected during Apollo but never attempted at such distance, offered a safety net. If anything failed, gravity would still bring the crew home. 53 years had passed since the last time anyone saw the Moon's far side with their own eyes. For the Artemis II crew, that legacy was more than history. It was a living challenge. As the rocket cleared the tower and the Florida coast fell away, each astronaut knew they were stepping into a story that began before they were born. Their mission would test not just hardware, but the irreplaceable value of human presence, the ability to look out a window, see something no camera can quite capture, and bring that moment back to all of us. The world watched as the white plume arced across the dusk sky. 4 voices, Wiseman, Glover, Koch, and Hansen, writing the hopes of a new era. The journey had begun. April 6, 2026, 1:57 p.m. Eastern Time. Deep in the void between worlds, Orion's radio crackled with a voice that would echo into history. Jeremy Hansen, calm but unmistakably moved, read the numbers from the console. We are now 200 to 52,756 miles from Earth, the farthest any human has ever traveled. For a moment, the cabin fell silent. The crew had just crossed a threshold that had held for more than half a century. The previous record, set by Apollo 13 in 1970, stood at 248,655 miles. Now, by the precision of Deep Space Network telemetry, that line was behind them. The new figure, 252,756 miles, was not just a statistic. It was the measure of every risk, every calculation, every hope that carried them into the unknown. Outside the windows, Earth had shrunk to a pale disk. The moon, still ahead, offered no comfort, only the promise of a horizon no human had ever approached. On the ground, confirmation came from the Goldstone and Canberra tracking stations, their signals bouncing back across more than 400,000 kilometers, verifying the record in real time. In Houston, the flight director's voice broke through. "Orion, you are officially farther from home than anyone in history. Congratulations." Hansen's reply was half celebration, half challenge. From the cabin of integrity, Omai, we're honoring the extraordinary efforts of our predecessors. We challenge the next generation to make sure this record is not long-lived. The numbers themselves were stark. Apollo 13's farthest point was 248,655 miles. Artemis II reached 252,756 miles. A gap of over 4,100 miles, enough to span the continental United States and back again. In the press room, the figure went up on the board, 252,756. The world watched as the milestone flashed across news tickers and social feeds. But inside Orion, the meaning was more personal. Glover glanced at the navigation display, Koch scribbled the time in her flight log, and Wiseman, ever the commander, simply nodded. Hansen grinned and quipped, "Guess we're going to need a bigger map." For the crew, the distance was not just about numbers. It was about standing on the edge of everything familiar, trusting their ship, their training, and each other. Every mile farther was a mile that had never been lived by a human being. Every heartbeat, every breath was a step into blank space on the chart. The record was more than a headline. It was a reminder that exploration is measured not only in miles, but in courage. And as the moon's far side drew closer, the sense of scale, of risk, of awe, of possibility settled over the crew. They were farther from home than any of the Apollo astronauts, farther than any person in history. The most mysterious part of their journey still lay ahead. Orion traced a 7-hour arc above the lunar far side, gliding just 115 kilometers over battered highlands. The sun, only 20 degrees above the horizon, cast long, knife-edge shadows, carving every ridge and crater into sharp relief. Under this low light, the moon's hidden face revealed colors and textures no probe had ever quite captured. For the 4 astronauts, each moment at the window was a chance to see what machines had missed. Inside the capsule, checklists faded into quiet awe. Each crew member cycled through a slate of 35 target sites, impact basins, crater rims, and smooth plains, chosen for their scientific promise. The plan was meticulous, but the reality was anything but routine. Christina Koch broke the silence and said that the western wall of Mare Orientale looked almost silvery, and that the ejecta were crisp with fine-grained shadowing. She described subtle shifts in light along the basin's rim, details that had slipped past even the sharpest orbital cameras. Victor Glover, watching the South Pole Aitken Basin, spotted something odd. He said that over the floor there was a pale, almost greenish tint, something you do not see on the near side. His words lingered, a color anomaly hinted at in old Apollo photos, never confirmed until now. Jeremy Hansen, referencing his checklist, called out coordinates for the Von Karman Highlands. As Orion swept overhead, the crew pressed closer, searching for the elusive greenish patch. Sunlight, filtered through the thin lunar exosphere, teased out faint olive and blue swirls among the grays and whites of the regolith. On Earth, flight controllers listened as the astronauts described these colors in real time. Their words became a new kind of data, subjective but irreplaceable. No instrument could match the human eye for subtle color under shifting light. The crew's impressions, silvery ejecta, greenish tints, and glassy peaks, were logged alongside digital images and spectral readings, creating a layered record that would challenge years of remote sensing. For 7 hours, the far side became a living landscape, shaped by sunlight and shadow, brought home in the language of wonder. Orion's path swept behind the moon, and with one silent moment, the world disappeared. The capsule's S-band and Ka-band antennas lost all contact. No voice, no telemetry, nothing but the ship and its crew. The blackout lasted 40 minutes, the longest stretch of isolation any astronaut had faced in decades. Before the signal faded, Christina Koch said, "We love you from the moon. We will see you on the other side." There is a geometry to this silence. The moon's bulk, over 2,100 miles of rock, stood between Orion and every dish on Earth, blocking radio waves completely. No relay, no workaround. For those 40 minutes, the 4 astronauts were as alone as any humans have ever been, cut off not just from Houston, but from every other living soul. Inside the capsule, the mood shifted. Checklists set aside. Each crew member drifted to a window. Out there, the far side's battered highlands glowed in the low light, untouched by human eyes. Then, as Orion arced around the limb, a pale blue crescent edged into view. Earthrise. Against the black, that fragile disk seemed impossibly distant, home but unreachable. Koch pressed her forehead to the glass, scribbling a note in her log. Hansen later described the moment. "You really felt like you were not in a capsule. You had been transported to the far side of the moon. It bent your mind." The silence was more than technical. It pressed in, sharpening every breath, every heartbeat. There was no hum of mission control, no comforting chatter. Just 4 people and the vastness outside. For a few minutes, the only sounds were switches clicking, cameras whirring, and the occasional nervous laugh. Koch tried to lighten the mood by saying, "We might go look at the far side of the moon and take in its awesomeness, and then go, maybe I should change my socks." The blackout was not just a test of hardware. It was a test of trust. Trust in the ship, in each other, in the invisible ark that would bring them home. 40 minutes later, the first crackle of radio returned. Connection restored, but the memory of that hush and the sight of Earth rising over a world no one had ever called home would stay with them forever. A sudden flicker caught Wiseman's eye, a pinpoint of light on the battered gray plane below. Before anyone could react, another flash erupted near the crater rim, sharp and unmistakable against the lunar night. In the tiny world of Orion, adrenaline spiked. 4 astronauts, 250,000 miles from home, shouted over each other, scrambling to check the camera feeds and note the time. "That's 2," Hansen called out, his voice half disbelief, half triumph. The far side of the moon, silent for eons, had just revealed its own fireworks. Minutes later, as the capsule drifted deeper into blackout, 2 more flashes burst against the horizon. This time only the crew bore witness. Hansen scribbled coordinates. Glover tried to estimate the brightness. And Koch, her voice tight with excitement, reported, "We've got impact number 4. I think that's a record." On the ground, mission control erupted. Engineers leapt to their feet, some literally jumping up and down as the reports came in. The impact team, trained for years to catch these rare events on automated cameras, now had live human confirmation, 4 distinct meteoroid strikes, each a split-second burst of cosmic violence, all logged by crew eyes and Orion's high-speed imaging system. The timing was uncanny, 2 flashes before the blackout, 2 during radio silence, all within a stretch of lunar night, barely an hour long. Each event was tagged with an exact timestamp and location, feeding a follow-up campaign that would cross-check the LRO impact database against the crew's own logs. For the Artemis II astronauts, the flashes weren't just science. They were a jolt of pure discovery, proof that even in the digital age, there's nothing like being there when the universe decides to put on a show. At 8:35 p.m. Eastern, the sun vanished behind the moon. From Orion's windows, the universe seemed to pause. The lunar disk, black as ink, edged across the sun until the corona burst into view, a pale, ghostly crown stretching in all directions. For nearly an hour, the crew witnessed a total solar eclipse that no one on Earth could see, an event possible only from their lonely arc above the far side. Victor Glover's voice came through, hushed and awestruck. Just went sci-fi. Humans probably have not evolved to see what we're seeing. It is truly hard to describe. The words hung in the silence, as if even the capsule itself was holding its breath. Outside, the corona shimmered, its streamers twisting into space, brighter and more intricate than any photograph could ever capture. The moon's surface, usually lost in shadow during an eclipse, glowed faintly with earth shine, sunlight reflected off Earth's oceans and clouds, bouncing across 250,000 miles to paint the craters in a soft, blue-white haze. Glover pressed closer to the window, whispering, "It's like the moon is wearing a halo." For the crew, it was more than a spectacle. The eclipse revealed how sunlight and shadow sculpt the lunar landscape, exposing features invisible. Under harsh glare, cameras rolled, but it was the human eye that caught the subtle hues and the living movement of the corona. In that moment, the boundary between science and wonder dissolved. The astronauts were both observers and participants, witnessing a cosmic alignment that, for a brief time, belonged to them alone. As totality lingered, the capsule felt impossibly small, 4 people suspended between worlds, watching the universe perform its rarest magic. No data could measure the feeling in that cabin. Yet every detail, from the corona's pearly glow to the moon's ghost-lit surface, would return to Earth as both evidence and memory. The eclipse became a touchstone, proof that even in the age of robots and sensors, there are still things in the universe that demand to be seen by human eyes. Laughter drifted through Orion's cabin, cutting through the hush of deep space. Christina Koch, gazing at the moon's battered highlands, deadpanned that they might go look at the far side of the moon and take in its awesomeness, and then say, "Maybe I should change my socks." The line landed with the crew and with millions listening back on Earth, a reminder that even in the loneliest corner of the solar system, ordinary life persists. Socks, checklists, jokes, they all traveled farther than any human had before. But Artemis II was also a mission of remembrance and connection. During a quiet off-mic moment, the crew dedicated an unnamed crater to Carol Wiseman, the late wife of their commander. It was a private gesture, spoken softly, but it left a mark on the far side as real as any flag or plaque. In a place where nothing is named for the living, this simple act tied the journey to love and loss back home. Midway through the lunar arc, the radio sparked with surprise. President Trump's voice reached Orion, patchy but clear, hailing the astronauts as modern-day pioneers and thanking them for carrying the world's hopes farther than ever before. The crew grinned, trading banter about presidential calls and the view from their window. Then a voice from the past, a pre-recorded message from Jim Lovell, veteran of Apollo 8 and Apollo 13. He said, "Welcome to my old neighborhood. Don't forget to enjoy the view." For a moment, the boundaries of decades and distance faded. 4 astronauts, suspended between worlds, carried the legacy forward, not just with data and discovery, but with humor, memory, and the irrepressible urge to share the moment with those who came before. Every image, every color note, every flash of light the Artemis II crew recorded now feeds a new kind of lunar database. The science teams at Johnson and Goddard pour over thousands of downlinked photographs, each one tagged by a human, a real person who saw the moon's far side with their own eyes. Where an astronaut called out a silvery ejecta blanket or a greenish patch, analysts compare the crew's impressions with spectral maps from Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter and Chandrayaan-1. They check for subtle shifts in mineral signatures, cross-referencing the astronauts' color cues with instrument data, pixel by pixel. The 4 impact flashes, each logged with a precise timestamp and location, are now being matched against LRO's impact flash database. Human confirmation lets scientists calibrate automated detection algorithms for future missions, refining hazard maps for Artemis III's planned landing near the South Pole. This workflow, human eyes flagging details, machines verifying, then humans interpreting again, creates a feedback loop that no robotic probe can match. The Artemis II crew's observations set a new standard for what counts as evidence. Their judgment, their ability to spot the unexpected, now shapes the next mission's landing sites, hazard assessments, and scientific priorities. In an age of sensors and AI, the Moon still yields its secrets most fully to those who are there to see. Right now, 4 voices echo in a place no human had seen in half a century, a testament to why we still send people, not just probes. As Artemis II's crew watched the far side blaze with asteroid flashes and lunar shadows, their awe and their laughter became data too. The universe still reveals itself, not just to instruments, but to human eyes and hearts willing to look up. Share your thoughts below.